p.m. only on Bloomberg Quint.
Back with Countdown right here on Bloomberg Quint, and 30 minutes to go for the markets to shut shop. We are not having a bad expiry, I must say. Do watch out for some certain excitement in specific categories happening, but by and large, I think we're doing rather well for ourselves. Lots of stocks are trading at new highs, including a Siemens, which is at 1289, including InfoEdge, which about 5% higher, is at 2152 and trading at life highs for itself. And Deepak Nitrite at 317 is also packing some punch. Vinity Organics, by the way, 2100, just about there. So a couple of these, 3 or 4 of these names doing rather well for themselves in the session today. But before we move any further, let's get in Shad Dubey, who is joining in with a list of the Fab 4 stocks for the afternoon. Shad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Neeraj. Adani Power is the first stock which I've picked up. The stock went up as high as 8% after it announced its result, in which the revenues grew by almost 70% to around 6,700 crore rupees. However, the results were quite mixed, as EBITDA margins were affected, and there was also a sharp jump seen in the power cost as well as expenses. But it still remains the biggest gainer in the Nifty 500 index. Up next, we are having West Coast Paper, which is up almost 7% after the company is going to purchase the controlling stake of around 51 to 60% stake from the promoters of the international papers at around 275 per share. This will entail an outgo of around 580 to 650 odd crore rupees, and also this move will trigger an open offer to the public at around rupees 450 per share. Up next, we are having Alchem Labs, which is up by 2.7%. A good quarterly performance, Neeraj, for this domestic player, and the revenues increasing by almost 24% at around 1800 odd crore rupees, and the net profits rising by almost 2.5 times to around 167 odd crore rupees. Both the businesses, the India business as well as the small US business, both of them performed better, and they grew almost more than 20% odd. Last stock we are having is CSE, which is up almost 2.6% after the company executed a distribution franchisee agreement with Maharashtra State Electricity Board for the Malegaon Circle. So these 4 stocks are buzzing in the trade today, Neeraj.
All right, Sharad, thanks very much for that. Those are the Fab 4 stocks for the day. Moving on, oil and gas manufacturer ONGC will also report its fourth quarter numbers today. Lower oil prices and lower sales are likely to have a negative effect on the company's financials. Samit Sarkar is joining us right now to tell us what are the other factors that could have a bearing on the company's performance. Samit.
So if you see, compared to last quarter, ONGC is expected to report a weak set of numbers. The company's revenues are expected to decline by nearly 9% to close to 25,000 crore rupees. The company's EBITDA is expected to be low by nearly 17%. Margins are expected to contract to nearly 54.9%, while the net profit is expected to be low by nearly 13% to close to 6,500 crore rupees. Now, sequentially is expected to be a weak quarter due to lower oil prices and lower sales volume. Now, other than this, lower other income and a high cost are also expected to weigh on the company's bottom line in the fourth quarter of financial year 2019. Now, net realizations of the company are expected to be lower because Brent crude averaged lower at around $64 per barrel versus $69 per barrel in the third quarter of financial year 2019. Along with this, the production and the sales number are also expected to be lower. Now, the crude and gas production numbers are expected to be lower by nearly 1 to 2%, while the crude and gas sales numbers are expected to be lower by nearly 1 to 4%. Other than this, if you see the interest cost of the company, that is expected to be lower compared to last quarter because the company has been repaying the debt that it had taken to buy out HPCL. Also, all these numbers are assumed on the fact that the company won't have to bear any subsidy burden in the fourth quarter of financial year 2019. However, if the company has to bears a subsidy burden in the fourth quarter, then the numbers would be different than what the estimates have come in, and it would be for the first time in since the second quarter of financial year 2016 that the company would have to bear a subsidy burden. Lastly, keen things to watch out for from the earnings would include the clarity on subsidy burden, if any, the company bears. Along with that, oil and gas production volume numbers, company's development plan for KG Basin, the capital expenditure plan and the production guidance that the company gives for FY20, and any update on the debt repayment related to HPCL funding would be important to watch out for from ONGC earnings today.
We'll watch out for these. Thanks a lot for that, Samit. ONGC is not in the thick of things today. a lot of other companies are. By the way, United Spirits marginally higher. There is some strength in Max India today, as we spoke about, so watch out for that one. Symphony's bounced back 3% higher as well at 1420. So good going for some of these names. Dipan, what would you, how would you think the markets would approach investing in some of these cooling solution companies falling within that consumer durable bucket? Weather has been erratic and therefore their fortunes have been erratic as well. Be it coolers, be it air conditioners, etc. Do you think that, or do you think that you would use this price volatility to make a fresh investment or increase an investment into these companies? Are they within that consideration list at all?
See, I think all the air conditioning and the air cooler company, the only one which is listed is on our watch list. It's just that this particular segment is quite expensive at this point of time and we don't really have a handle on the visibility of the earnings. So the risk return equation is not appealing at this point of time. But there are a whole host of other appliance companies, the likes of say TTK Prestige or Bajaj Electricals or Havells, and we have seen which could be quite interesting, and going forward because of the diversity of the product range, maybe they could offer a slightly higher returns.
Okay. Dipan, the other pocket which has had a remarkable uptick the last maybe many years, yes, but in the recent past, in the last few days as well, is specialty chemicals. Almost all the notable names are trading in or around those fresh high levels. In today's session too, by the way, Vinati, Deepak Natrai are trading at new highs. Have you looked at this pocket at all? Do you think the stocks have run their course or is there more in store? What would your advice be?
Essentially, these are cyclical plays and they've benefited from the turmoil in manufacturing which is taking place in China and overall improvement for the demands globally. But now with global economy also tending to slow down and these stocks have run up significantly, and also scope for them for the end product prices to move up in the specialty chemicals is now quite limited, and at the same time volume growth is not going to be as much to support these kind of valuations. So I think these companies are perhaps at around about their peak levels, so would certainly like to avoid them. And the best time to buy was maybe 6 to 12 months ago when they were available at bargain valuations, and very few had an idea that this was the kind of performance that would come about because of higher end product prices. So I'm not that positive on the sector, and you will see in 2 to 3 quarters or so as the base effect starts to catch up that a lot of these specialty chemical companies will show quite stagnant or flattish performance.
Get out of them at the current juncture if you had them, if you had bought it earlier?
No, I think that's a different question because when you're looking at buying into a company, then you want to make sure you get the right valuation and there's adequate margin of safety. But if you're sitting on huge profit, the decision is far easier. I still feel that maybe 1 or 2 quarters more they may come out with good set of numbers. With a market like this and euphoria if that's starting to build up, these stocks will certainly trade higher. So remain invested, but don't make fresh investment at these levels. That is what our assessment is.
Okay, got that. Let's get in some trading calls going as well. Hadrien, what would you do with Edelweiss now that's surged to 192?
Yeah, so Edelweiss definitely showing very good momentum. Not only Edelweiss, but all the other stocks in this space is showing a lot of momentum. I think Edelweiss has the potential of moving higher towards the 195 to 198 zone in the short term.
Okay. The other one is Delta Corp. That's also had a pretty rough ride over the last 1 or 1.5 months. Stocks at 208 now, though in an intraday basis, it's not doing a whole lot much, but yesterday had a decent trading session. Abhijit, what would you do with a Delta Corp?
I'm sorry, I don't track that stock.
Hadrien, do you track Delta Corp?
Yeah, so Delta Corp, if you see, has actually broken up from a structural pattern, and right now it is doing retracement of the breakdown that has happened. So I think there is still more scope because the breakdown point is close to the 218, 220 zone. So I think that is where one can consider going short or exiting your current longs. So Delta Corp still has scope, but it's still not completely out of the woods.
Dipan, how would you approach this? Squarely in the consumption space, has got this niche premium around itself too, but there are these uncertainties that may not have started to crop up, but at least in the minds of the investors because of those couple of stories which have come out as well. The companies denied them, but they still exist and they brought the stock down. Have you looked at it at all?
Yeah, we've been tracking the company, but I think the risk parameters are keeping on increasing, and one can't take a large bet on a company like Delta given the kind of regulatory uncertainties and regulatory moves which may damage the business model. So while it's a great consumption play, provided there is stability as far as regulation and taxation is concerned, and since that is not there at present, you will see that the stock will gradually get derated going forward, although the underlying growth momentum may remain intact, but it's just that investors start pricing in higher risk for any action which may be taken by the state government of Goa or the GST authorities, because there's a lot of challenges over there from the company point of view which have no control, and they have no control over how the regulator, the state government may make its laws going forward. So you could take a small bet on it, but it cannot be a high conviction buy.
Okay. The other thing that we did today, and Dipan, final question to you. One story that we put out today was about how Gujarat Gas will have a reasonably strong next 12 months and could outperform its peers because, and if it does well in quarter 1 and quarter 2, it needs to deliver on the quarter 1 and quarter 2 numbers, and if indeed those volume growth numbers are high during this first couple of quarters, then Gujarat Gas might be amongst the best performer even though it's lagged in the previous quarter. Do log on to the website and do try and read that story. But the interesting bit is that the entire bucket of stocks has done reasonably well for itself. IGL post its results has done well. Gujarat Gas is doing okay in today's session to up and about. Dipan, final question. Any thoughts on these gas companies, Gujarat, MGL or Indraprastha Gas?
We want to play it differently, and the stock in the gas space to look out for is Aegis Logistics. And if you see the performance for the past several quarters has been very impressive. They're one of the largest gas importers into the country, and if you see the kind of investment which they are making in the gas terminals and how those are scaling up, it's pretty impressive. So while we are very positive on the entire gasification economy which is taking place, which means gas being used more as fuel in industry as well as for automobiles, that trend will certainly remain intact. But in our opinion, an importer like Aegis Logistics may be able to create higher value. The problem with utility companies like Gujarat Gas and Mahanagar and IGL is that from time to time they do well for 2-3 quarters or so, but then they have subdued performance for whatever reasons, where could be regulatory, and end of the day I think consumption also comes into play, and unless they're able to grow grow and expand into other virgin territories, their growth rates tend to get pretty much on the slower side. So while it's an interesting investment theme, in our opinion the best way to play it would be to something like an Aegis Logistics.
We'll leave it at that. Dipan Mehta, thanks so much for taking the time out and being with us today and giving us your thoughts. We missed asking Dipan about TVS Motors, but that conversation will have to wait for some another day. While we're talking about that, these companies, the gas companies that I spoke about, have done very well. Abhijit, Phatak, have you looked at the charts of or the positions within Indraprastha Gas or a Gujarat Gas or an MGL? What do they tell you?
No, again, I don't track this sector much, so I wouldn't be able to comment.
Okay. Hadrien, by any chance, have you looked at these names?
Yeah, absolutely. MGL, to be more specific, out of all the names, the stock has seen a healthy bit of correction, in the recent past. What we have noticed is that in the past 2 weeks, the stock has stopped falling. That is the first bit of, some kind of base building that MGL is trying to create over here. So I think it is definitely once again, coming out above its long-term 200-day moving average, and I think that is a very good sign, the second positive parameter that is visible. So I think MGL could be a good bargain buy around these levels. I think on the upside, 950 to 960, keeping a 2 to 3 weeks perspective cannot be ruled out on an MGL.
Okay, that's Mahanagar Gas, 892 on the stock right now. It's time, however, to take a look at what dealing rooms are recommending right now. Yatin Mehta is here with his channel checks. Yatin, what are you picking up?
Afternoon, Devina, and Siemens is one stock which is doing quite well. In fact, domestic infrastructure mutual funds, those schemes are really buying, the likes of Siemens, 4% up for that one. The stock has crossed 1300 and it is at a multi-month high. So clearly this stock remains under focus. Remember, during the quarterly earnings also, dealers were indicating that the orders which have come in at a 6-year high, the order book is quite interesting, and a lot of interest as far as Siemens is concerned for the domestic mutual funds. CESC is also one stock wherein dealers are recommending a STBT strategy. Dealers do expect some profit taking which can happen at higher levels. Of course, the stock is up 2.5%, has come off a little bit from the day's high, but dealers do believe that there could be some pressure on the stock moving forward. And Page Industries is another stock in general in line with the consumption stocks. That stock is also going down, but dealers do indicate that one large FII shareholder has been exiting shares via selling the delivery shares. So this is one stock wherein dealers do expect some furthermore downside to happen. So watch out for this name, could be interesting moving forward.
Wow, this is interesting. Thanks so much, Yatin. So your dealing room sources are telling you that Page Industries might drift a bit lower than where it is right now.
Yeah, so funds have been exiting, so large shareholder is exiting, probably that pressure dealers do expect would continue. And we have seen the stock from the highs of 36,000 has come down significantly. So probably there could be some further downside according to dealers.
Hi. Thanks for that, Yatin. Abhijit, have you looked at Page Industries? Okay, I don't think Abhijit can hear me. Maybe Hadrien, let me try with you. Page Industries after the fall. Okay, Abhijit, you can hear me. Page Industries.
Yeah, Page Industries, after that gap down, it is just consolidating. So it's a no trade zone for me right now. Let it do something, at least go above the gap or maybe below that. Right now it is just consolidating. So it's a stay away stock for the time being.
Hadrien, would you agree it's a stay away stock?
I think Page Industries, we are seeing a very huge structural breakdown. Yes, I'm agreeing with the gap down that has happened on the weekly charts, but that is not something good a long trader would want to, see on the weekly charts. I think it's a very negative development on the larger structure. I think from here on, the strategy in Page Industries is definitely going to be sell on rallies. I think I would change my stance only if I would see Page Industries once again going above the 21,000 mark. Before that, I think the stance would continue to be sell on rally.
Okay, that's Page Industries at 19,300 right now. More movers. Actually, I wanted a quick call on Emphasis as well at 1,000, Hadrien.
Yes, Emphasis is definitely showing very good momentum. In fact, stock was just consolidating, and today's move itself has shown a lot of momentum with good volume participation. I think it is heading higher towards its long-term 200 moving average resistance that is close to the 1030, 1050 zone. So I think there is still more scope on the upside. Long position should be held for a target of 1035.
Okay. What about specific closing strategies? Hadrien, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I'll continue to go long, and the stock that I'm really looking forward to is Reliance Industries. We have seen a decent amount of downtick on Reliance in the past couple of trading sessions, and it is making a very strong comeback in today's day. I think Reliance, has just begun once again its upswing, and we are expecting a short-term target of 1365, keeping a strict stop loss at 1314 on the downside.
Okay, Abhijit, what about you? Your top closing strategy?
Like I said, Nifty has not crossed the resistance of 11,970. So as long as that is not crossed, I would be a bit wary going long. Of course, if it crosses tomorrow, it will be definitely a long. And then all the other stocks will of course join it. But then as long as the 970 is not crossed, I'll be a bit cautious at this level.
Bandhan Bank, Canfin Homes, and the big dark horse in the real estate space, and that's DLF, has started moving up. DLF's now at 195, Canfin Homes 357, Bandhan Bank around 600, 595 on the stock. Anything from these three, Hadrien? Bandhan Bank, Canfin Homes, or DLF?
Yeah, I'd go with Canfin Homes. The stock is just on the verge of a very good consolidation breakout, and Canfin Homes is really showing potential that it will go higher by another 4 to 5% from here on in the short term. So I think Canfin Homes would be the preferred stock in the near term.
Some numbers on your screen. Berger Paints, and seems to be a flattish performance on the bottom line. The revenue growth still reasonably okay at 1472. This would mean a growth of 11 or 12% on the top line, which is not bad, I would presume. But the bottom line numbers are absolutely flat for Berger Paints. Don't quite know what the margin number would be as well. So there'll be some brief excitement that you'll see as a result of day traders trying to punch in and make that quick buck. I don't think the numbers are showing anything indicative, and I don't think the numbers are showing anything dramatically impressive. Maybe compared to estimates, the numbers could be good. I don't have those estimates at hand. But the bottom line numbers seem to be very, very flattish in the session. So no big developments, fundamental developments in the quarter, presumably, as a result of which the bottom line numbers is just absolutely flat this quarter.
Would you trade this one, Abhijit, Berger Paints, or any other stocks within this industry, even in Asian Paints for that matter, or Shalimar? Hadrien, what would you do with these paint stocks?
So is that for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with an Asian Paints. The stock is really showing good signs of, just the beginning of building of a higher lows. It is also managing to hold above its long-term 200 moving average. We are seeing positive crossovers on the relative strength index. I think these parameters are good enough for, meriting a buy in Asian Paints. I think in the near term, 1415 levels, keeping a couple of weeks of time in mind, 1415 levels cannot be ruled out.
Okay. That's Asian Paints that Hadrien is liking at this current point in time. We've got just a few minutes left to go, actually.
Look at Just Dial. That stock is revving up. It's now up 9% at 753. It's quite a remarkable move that this stock is doing. Okay, 11%. Just a big spike coming in. And on volumes too, which are very high, 8.5 million shares. If you pull up the AVAT function on the Bloomberg terminal for Just Dial, you will see that while the stock has trended up on higher volumes, nevertheless, today's volumes too are on the higher side. So there'll be an uptrending blue line, I reckon. There you can see on your screen an uptrending blue line, but the white line, which is today's volumes, much higher than the 20-day average volumes. So good price, good volume action there. Just Dial is just hitting all the right notes when it comes to a trade. The other one which is doing impressively well and looking like ending at the day's highs is Symphony. Not the same the volumes by any stretch of imagination, but the price action is quite good. 1441 or 1450, it's trading or ending at the highest point of the day. Abhijit, Phatak, maybe we spoke about Just Dial already, but it's now ended even higher. So Just Dial or Symphony, either of them on the charts or the derivative positions.
Yeah, I think Just Dial, I would go with Just Dial, and it is definitely a bullish stock. And like I said, the target was 850, 900, and maybe that might be achieved in the next month, in June.
Fine. All
Okay.
right.
And Hadrien, what about Symphony?
Yeah, see, Symphony, first of all, the stock is definitely showing good momentum, but I think I would like to see more volume participation in the move that the price is actually showing. Because if we don't see that volume participation, I think, the momentum will start dying off. Mind you, the stock is up constantly for I guess for the 6th or 7th consecutive month, and that run is too long. I think I'm expecting a little bit of consolidation, a little bit of price correction before I would like to actually enter. So Symphony right now, after such a long move, I would actually avoid.
Okay. And Hadrien, not a buy or a sell, but what do the charts indicate for Vinati Organics or a Deepak Nitrite? Both of them are closing the day at their life highs.
Yeah, both these stocks, are performing remarkably well. And Vinati Organics, if I'm not wrong, we had a conversation about this even yesterday, and it was showing very good momentum. And let me come to Deepak Nitrite. When we're seeing the long-term weekly charts on the screen, I think the prices have actually broken out pretty significantly after a long consolidation. And I think this can be the next Vinati. The move that we saw in Vinati in the past 6 to 7 months, I think Deepak Nitrite is well on its parts to reveal that up move going forward. So I think if you compare Deepak and Vinati, I think I would go with Deepak Nitrite, because there is a lot of legs still left in this up move. We could actually well see the stock moving beyond the 400 mark if you have a 3 to 6 months perspective.
Well, it's certainly doing well, and Hadrien is very bullish beyond 400 maybe. That number too, not beyond the means. Hadrien, Abhijit, stay on. We'll take in closing thoughts from you. But the markets are shutting shop on a very strong note on this expiry day, and mind you, hardly any volatility, as maybe Abhijit will tell you post-closing as well. A lot of volatility within specific stocks nowadays happens a day or two ahead of expiry, but you would have thought that there might be some. There wasn't too much. At least it didn't show on the bourses, the large caps at least. The mid caps and the small caps not doing as well as the large caps did, but the second half of trade, or the last 1 hour of trade, let's just see if there was a pullback that came in between the mid cap and the small cap indices, because the Nifty and the Sensex have done well. The Bank Nifty has done okay, but the mid cap and the small cap indices, which will come up on your screen, those, a bit of a pickup for sure. Maybe, just maybe, the market breadth too showed signs of improvement. We'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's talk about what the Nifty stocks did, and then I'll hand it over to Devina for what happened to the mid caps and the small caps. NTPC 3.5% higher. Bharti has been rock steady throughout the day, up about 3%. There's strength in TCS, and maybe just the sign of what's happening in the IT space in the last 2 or 3 sessions. HDFC amongst the other heavyweights, which has done well. You don't quite see Reliance Industries out here, but has done well. And then Bajaj Finance 2% higher, by the way. Keep that at the back of your mind. What's not done well? Sun Pharma correcting today, iShares correcting today, M&M correcting today. There's weakness in ONGC ahead of the numbers, and the steel companies for a second in a trot. Metal companies essentially, JSW, Tata Steel, Vedanta, second in a trot, have corrected in true. But as I said, maybe, just maybe, the mid caps and the small caps, the indices clawed their way back. The market rate might have improved enough and more stocks, Devina, to warrant excitement at the broader end of the spectrum.
Yeah, but not as much as the large cap index. They fell short a bit in today's session. But you do have a few big movers within the broader market space. And in the last minute, big tick that came into a Just Dial saw that stock move up pretty significantly by about 11.5%. 764 in Just Dial. Remember, a very heavily foreign-owned stock, foreign institutional investors holding closer to about 43% in the company. So that's one stock to watch out for. Adani Power is the other one that did well. Info Edge, remember, good numbers. Stock did well yesterday, and the stock in today's session also saw an uptick of about 5%. There is recovery, and a stock like Edelweiss is once again bounced back from these levels of about 150. Now 192 at close. Saw that big last 20-minute uptick on the counter. Max India does well. Manappuram Finance did well, and Emphasis in intraday trade crossed that 1,000 mark. Emphasis, remember, has been struggling a bit, had reached 900 on the downside some time ago, and from there it's been a remarkable move right up until 1,000 right now. V-Guard on good numbers has done well in today's session. PVR2 looking strong, and Siemens, you heard Yathan talking about how there's some amount of institutional interest that's coming about in the stock, and the stock finally shutting shop with gains of about 4%. On the loser side, Nav Bharat Ventures, that's the other one that's declined in today's session. 9% cut on the stock. Markson's Pharma is the other one following. That is Prestige Estates. Remember, this is profit taking. The stock did well in terms of its quarterly performance. Ahead of that, it had already started running up. So you're seeing some amount of profit off the table here. Showman Logistics, yesterday's session saw most of these logistics names, Gati, Aegis, including Snowman Logistics, all of these names were up about 4.5 to 5%. So that sees some amount of correction in today's session. And Reliance Infra and Reliance Power from the ADA group stocks are looking weak. Along with that, even a Dish TV at the start of the session was down about 4.5%. That too remains sluggish by the end of trade. Picked up a little bit from the lows, but still down about 2.5%. So that's what you've got. Positive close on the indices, but you still have quite a few of those losers within the broader market space. But the breadth still is positive.
Okay, just get the...
And this is obviously a record closing yet again for the index.
Okay.
Record closing, not an intraday high, intraday record broken, but for the closing aspect, yeah.
Okay, let's get the market breadth up on the screen and see what's happened there. Well, no, just a bit of a convergence. So yeah,
towards the end it
yes,
shifted, yeah.
But just this bit of convergence that we've seen towards the close. So, well, not a bad close for the advances. The contributors list: Reliance, HDFC Twins, TCS. I reckon there's no change there. Yep, no change on the gaining side at least.
Taking a look at the turnover then, you expect a big number for the futures and options segment. Almost 24 lakh crores. This is definitely a big enough number for the monthly expiry. And even on the cash market side, it is above average, 37,000 odd crores.
Yeah, so well, good going really for the volumes front as well. Anyways, final thoughts from our experts. Abhijit, I'll come to you first. An expiry day devoid of some major volatility. Why has that happened, and what do you think is in store the near few days? Because you were a bit skeptical about the prospects of the markets in the near term.
No, actually, I have been bullish over the last few weeks, no doubt. But then the high which was made on the election results day, 12.070 on the futures and 12.041 on the spot. That day it was not a very good formation on the daily chart. So that is still acting as a bit of a dampener for me, and unless that is crossed, and again at least 11.970 on the futures. Above that it is definitely bullish, but I am a bit cautious at these levels because that selling had come on that day.
Hadrien, what about your closing thoughts?
Yeah, so markets have definitely, closed near its all-time highs, and which is a very, very good thing. But again, I would, concur with what the gentleman on the other side just spoke about, the election verdicts, a large candle that we've seen. I think I've already discussed this earlier as well with you. 12,070 on the upside, 11,640 on the downside is going to be a very big reference point for the markets going forward. This 400-point range, once we break above or below this range, generally we'll see some kind of directional move on the market. Still then, I think consolidation phase will continue.
Okay, Abhijit as well as Hadrien, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining in today and giving us your thoughts. Really appreciate your time. Let's see if the bullish undertones continue. For now, today's closing has been pretty exemplary. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Countdown from Devina and me and the team that put this show together. Thanks so much for watching.